The importance that episode 1 has is much larger than you think. They always say making a great first impression matters, and the first episodes are the best way to do it. Whether you're watching a show you never heard of or diving into one that's riding a massive wave of hype, that very first episode has the power to make or break a viewer's perception of the entire story. For instance, have you ever watched the first episode of a well-regarded manga adaptation that already had all the hype behind it, only for it to completely exceed your expectations? Well, that's exactly what Dandadan did. Before its initial release, Dandadan was already being talked about as the next big thing, a series that could shake up the entire anime industry. But with hype, always comes a risk. What if it doesn't live up to the expectations? We've seen this before. A manga gets praised as a masterpiece, but when the anime drops, something's just off. Maybe it's the pacing, the anime quality, or the lack of heart in the adaptation. So when Dandadan was announced, fans were excited, but also cautious. Could it really capture the energy, chaos, and wild creativity of the manga? And then episode 1 dropped. It wasn't just good, it was phenomenal. But what exactly made Dandadan's first episode so special? For starters, the animation. Dandadan's manga is known for its insane level of detail, action, and eccentric characters. That's not an easy thing to translate into animation, but they did it gracefully. The way the camera angles move, the fluidity of the action scenes, and the vibrant colors bring the manga to life in a way that feels both refreshing and exciting. And then there's the tone. Dandadan isn't just about action, it's a perfect blend of horror, comedy, and romance. One second you're watching a terrifying supernatural entity, and the next you're laughing at the goonerness of it all, and then you're crying because of a sad backstory that catches you off guard. The first episode captures this balance perfectly, making sure new viewers instantly understand what this series will be all about. And of course, the characters. From the very first episode, we get a clear sense of who Momo and Okurun are, their personalities, their quirks, their chemistry. Some series take several episodes to establish this, but Dandadan does it within minutes. And this is why first episodes are so important. They're not just introductions, they set the tone for the entire series. I mean, think about it. What are some of the greatest anime first episodes ever? Attack on Titan. They immediately establish the high stakes in a brutal world. Jujutsu Kaisen. It hooks you with Yuji's likable personality and the insane fights from the jump. Chainsaw Man throws you into Denji's tragic yet chaotic life. And The Promised Neverland fills your mind with mystery from the random gore dropped in. And now Dandadan joins that list. It's a bit different from the others that I just listed, mainly because those anime have a more serious and dark tone to them versus Dandadan being on the more goofy side. But the show itself doesn't just meet expectations, it shatters them, proving that it's not just another overhyped adaptation, but something truly special. So where does Dandadan go from here? If the first episode is anything to go by, this could easily be one of the best anime of the coming years. The visuals, the pacing, the energy, it all blends together for a great series. But now, the real test begins. Can Dandadan keep this momentum going? And will the studio maintain this level of quality throughout the seasons? Only time will tell. But one thing is for sure, Dandadan made one great first impression. On the opposite side of the spectrum, we have those anime with no hype around it and little to no fan base. We all loved hyped anime series that dominate conversations before they even air. But what about the hidden gems? The ones that no one saw coming? There's something truly special about going into an anime with zero expectations, no hype, no big name studio flexing its budget, just a story waiting to prove itself. And when an anime like that completely blows you away in one episode, well, that's an experience like no other. That's exactly what happened with ReZero. Before its release, no one was really talking about it. Maybe it was overshadowed by other bigger hits, maybe the trailers didn't do any justice, or maybe people just assumed it wouldn't be anything good. But then episode 1 dropped, and it was so much more than anyone could have expected. And the crazy thing about hype is that it can be a double-edged sword. Too much hype can lead to disappointment, but when a show flies under the radar, it has a chance to really surprise you. I mean, think back to an anime like Made in Abyss, Windbreaker, or even Vinland Saga. These weren't the most talked about shows before they aired, but once people actually watched them, they couldn't stop talking about them. ReZero had that same exact effect. But how did it do it? Right from the opening scene, ReZero does something different. The tone, the world building, the music, everything about it just pulls you in. Whether it's a mystery that immediately hooks you, an unexpected emotion provoked in scene, or an electric action sequence, the first episode captures the audience attention fast. A lot of other anime take their time building up their characters, but they don't waste a second. From the moment we meet Subaru, we're invested in his motivations, struggles, and the way he interacts with the new world he was brought into. It all feels real and relatable. And then there's the supporting cast. I mean, sometimes it takes just one great side character to elevate an entire first episode, and these characters did not disappoint. Each one had their own unique upbringing and attractiveness that led the audience to be invested in their stories and see how it plays out, which is rare to see in episode 1. Every great first episode has that one moment that locks you in, and maybe it's a plot twist you didn't see coming. Maybe it's an action sequence that makes you sit up in your seat. But ReZero's was Subaru's return from death. I mean, isekais are typically known for the protagonist to die and be reborn in another world. So for him to die in the first episode made no sense. This moment in the anime, along with the characters and story building, completely hooked every viewer. Now it's no longer what this show is about. It's now, okay, let's see what's gonna happen next. And that's what the first episode will do to you. But then what happens when you have an incredible anime that has a boring and underwhelming first episode? Well, that's where Frieren comes in. Frieren's first episode for me, in a completely unbiased stance, was boring. It didn't pull me in, hook me, or even give me a compelling reason for me to continue watching. Yet Frieren's anime seen huge success. The anime itself is phenomenal, peak I might say, but the only reason I even stuck around and watched longer was because I was told it gets really good after episode 5, which it did, but that defies the entire premise of having a great episode 1. So how did Frieren's anime see so much success despite having an underwhelming start? Well, that's because it takes a different approach from typical fantasy anime. Their approach leaves behind the cliches of fantasy being either comedies or super action-packed and played more into the emotional side of the audience. When we think of fantasy anime, we usually imagine one of two things: explosive action-packed adventures like Fate Zero or Mushoku Tensei, or lighthearted fantasy comedies like Konosuba or Reincarnated as a Slime. Frieren doesn't fit into either of these categories. Instead, it takes an entirely different approach, one that's slower, more introspective, and emotionally driven. It's not about battles or world-shattering stakes, it's about time, loss, and the weight of memories. And that's where the first episode's impact, though subtle, starts to make sense. This is one of the more rare occasions that an anime with an underwhelming first episode and no hype behind it has flourished way beyond expectations. And I have to admit that as important as the first episode is in most cases, there are times where it may not actually tell the entire story. At first glance, Frieren's first episode feels like nothing happens. We meet the protagonist, Frieren, an elf mage who journeyed with the legendary party, defeated the Demon King, and returned home victorious. But instead of showing us what came before, the story focuses on what comes after. We see time pass, we see old friends age and die, while Frieren remains unchanged. We see the passage of decades within minutes. It's a melancholic introduction, and that's exactly the point. Unlike most first episodes that throw us straight into the action, Frieren takes a step back and forces us to feel what the protagonist feels. The emptiness of time, the weight of regret for moments lost, and the realization that she never truly appreciated the people she traveled with until it was too late. And while this emotional foundation isn't immediate, it lingers quietly. It plants a seed that grows over time, and by episode 5, it has already fully blossomed into one of the most satisfying fantasy narratives in anime. I would have never discovered a true gem had I let the first episode of Frieren be the end of my watching experience. And I truly did enjoy all of the anime because of the underlying themes within. And if I'm being honest, the slow start should have killed this anime's momentum. Most viewers, especially in today's fast-paced media landscape, won't wait 5 episodes for a show to get good, and yet Frieren still became a massive hit. Why? Well, because word of mouth. People who stuck around talked about it. The slow start didn't matter because those who pushed through wouldn't shut up about how amazing it gets. The emotional depth in episode 1, even if it didn't hook people, it left them thinking. It kept them curious. Even with the slow pace, the visuals and beautifully orchestrated soundtrack helped keep viewers engaged, and a unique fantasy alternative. In an era of fast-paced, high-stakes fantasy anime, Frieren stood out by doing the complete opposite, and it paid off. But does this prove that first episodes don't matter? Not exactly. In most cases, a weak first episode kills an anime's chances of success. If a show doesn't pull people in immediately, they'll just move on to something else. But Frieren is a rare exception, one that proves that sometimes the journey is worth the wait. And if I had judged Frieren purely on the first episode, I would have never finished it, and I would have missed out on one of the best anime experiences in years. So while first episodes are important, they don't always tell the full story, because sometimes it's not about the immediate impact, it's about the lasting impression. And Frieren, well, that's an anime that stays with you long after it ends. So judging a show by episode 1 may be a great way to assess the overall success it will have, but just having one impression to go by will not always be enough.